Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And Ashley, if I were to give your entire resume here, that would take the entire interview time. My goodness gracious, you're a busy lady.
Indeed, yes.
Founder and CEO of Freedom Fund USA, also Academy Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, based in Washington, D.C. She's got a whole bunch of numbers and names and initials because she has a whole bunch of degrees as well. But she joins us this morning to talk about, I think it's kind of puzzling to a lot of us, Ashley. The president talking about sanctions and the price that they cost us, even when the sanctions are half a world away. And maybe we don't understand completely why that would be, but in this case, we're talking about a food shortage that could be coming here because of sanctions placed on Russia. How does that formula all work?
That is a great question. And so apparently when you put all these sanctions on Russia, because Russia and Ukraine are, it's been said that they produce a fourth of the world's wheat, and there are concerns that there will be a global shortage because of that alone already due to the sanctions that impacts the export, import coming out of Russia. Already the U.S. and Canada, they're seeking to boost wheat production as Russia has already curtailed wheat shipments to former Soviet nations in Central Asia. So last Thursday, during a press conference, President Biden had mentioned at the NATO summit in Brussels, Belgium, that there will be real food shortages. And this comes after the U.S. and NATO have imposed economic sanctions on Russia for invading Ukraine on February 24th. And he stated, quote, with regard to food shortage, yes, we did talk about food shortages and it's going to be real, end quote. He went on to say that an awful lot of countries will be impacted, including European countries and our country as well. However, looking at what is taking place, there's concerns pertaining to shortages and global economic impact due to sanctions on Russia. So while NATO, the U.S., EU have been applying the sanctions on Russia, in that it's going to create a ripple effect because a lot of your European countries, other countries that are in partnership and alliance with Russia, particularly like India and some of your Middle Eastern nations, they're going to feel the impact on the sanctions that are placed on Russia. So in and through that, that is where NATO and the United States are having to look at how do they try to prevent this situation from happening? How do they try to alleviate the food shortage, in which NATO has been discussing urging all European countries and everyone else to, quote, end trade restrictions on limitation on sending food abroad. Jen Psaki, who's the press secretary, last week during a White House press conference, she was asked about President Biden's remarks pertaining to the food shortage, and she stated, quote, while we're not expecting a food shortage here at home, we do anticipate higher energy, fertilizer, wheat, and corn prices could impact the price of growing and purchasing critical food supplies for countries around the world. And she said early estimates from the World Bank suggest disproportionate impacts on low and middle income countries, including Africa, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. So what we're going to be seeing here is we may not necessarily feel the food shortage supply effect, but what we will see here is going to be an increase in furthering the inflation. We're going to see an increase of prices. And then if a lot of these lower income and middle income countries, like Psaki had said, Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia, if they're not able to get the food sources and supplies that they need, then I would not be surprised if we saw the U.S. try to fill that gap and help supply and send those resources to other countries, which then we could see a pinch and perhaps a food shortage, but I don't think it's going to be to the degree that people are expecting, but we're going to feel it in our pocketbook, and we're going to see the prices continue to increase.
Yeah, that's a scary thing. It really does point out, doesn't it, Ashley, how fragile the whole economic formula worldwide is. If one element is bruised a little bit, the ripple effect going down through is going to hit you in some way. And in Americans' cases, maybe we don't have empty grocery shelves like some other countries do. They're certainly not as full as they once were. But you're right. It's the wallet where it hits you most, because it's not as simple as just saying, well, let's just go plant more, is it?
No, and so a lot of your agricultural community, your farmers, they're probably going to feel the impact as well on this, especially needing the fertilizer. But in and through this, the Bloomberg had reported that already we've hit an 8% increase in inflation, which is a 40-year high on rising gasoline, food, and housing costs. And this inflation is expected to rise even further due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So already we're starting to see the effects. And so even though the administration is blaming the inflation on Russia, as Americans, we were starting to feel this last year when we saw the images of the cargo ships just sitting off the coastline, because they can't find enough distributors, enough truckers to be able to get the supplies off the cargo ships. We also then saw where the COVID pandemic, when all the lockdowns, how that impacted the economy and businesses. So everyone's trying to rebuild, reopen, and basically go back to the normal way of life again. But you do that, and already we're kind of at a weakened state. You compound that now with this Russian invasion. It's going to take a while for us to probably get back to normal, so to speak. And in the meantime, we're seeing everything increase and the cost of fuel and food on the rise.
Ashley, is America buying the blame Russia argument that is out there now?
According to NBC, they conducted a poll over the weekend, and 7 out of 10 Americans are concerned and do not believe, or I should say they don't have the confidence in Biden's handling of Russia and the Ukrainian conflict. So I would say based on that poll alone, no, I don't think Americans are buying into this narrative.
And the inflation has been on the rise for quite some time. So as we talked about, the fact that you pull one of those building blocks of the economy out and it's going to cause the other ones to weaken and have to bear more of a burden, there's probably no easy solution to turning this around, no short, quick fix, is there?
No, I don't see a short, quick fix on the horizon, and it's going to take some time, especially dealing with the different nations, the different NATO nations, who's going to pull more weight than the other, how are they going to work together in this. So it's going to take some time before we probably start seeing any real answers and real movement from NATO, let alone the United States. And so it's going to take some time. So hopefully, I'm hoping that by midterm elections in November, we start seeing more conductive strategies from the political parties here in the U.S. in terms of how to manage this situation, how to get the inflation down. And honestly, it would be great if this happened by the summertime, because summer, typically, due to travels, you start seeing increase summer ratings. You tend to see fuel increase during the summer months. So hopefully we start seeing some of the pressure alleviated by summer. But again, it just depends on how quick the nations, particularly NATO countries, act in regards to this situation.
We're wondering about the political climate in Washington, if there is even any will to change the nation's policies. Is it within the halls of Congress, this being an election year, are there people who are saying let's cooperate and let's find a way to reach a solution that's going to help the American people, or is it just going to be one side against another to see who wins in the election and then go from there?
I think to me, who's going to really. I think what we're going to be seeing, and I hate this because in times like this, politics tend to get in the way, but I think we're going to see one side against the other until the elections. It's going to be Republicans versus Democrats all the way. I have not seen, as of right now, any politicians coming together, let alone bipartisan legislation to stop this situation. I haven't seen any Republicans and Democrats working together to stop the inflation. But again, maybe that can change. It'd be great if there was some unity in this. But I would not be surprised if we continue to see the Republicans versus Democrats until the general election.
So many people are predicting a Republican takeover in the House and maybe in the Senate. But if one of those parties one of those chambers goes Republican, it is split even further, and it's really difficult to see them climbing their way out of it when you have a divided Congress, isn't it?
It is. And so I know there's a lot of prediction pertaining to Republicans based on Democrats that are also feeling the impact. They're feeling the inflation. They're feeling these price increase. And so I think what we're going to be seeing is the American people making their voice known with how they feel about the situation come November. And I do believe we're going to see the Republicans take back the House and the Senate, which then that will create a lame duck session for President Biden as he enters into his last 2 years of his first term. And so as you have the Republicans control the House and the Senate, it's going to be telling to see how they move forward. Are they going to work with President Biden in creating solutions, or are we just going to see the continuing bickering between Republicans and the White House? Only time will tell, but hopefully we can start seeing the Republicans start strategizing how they plan to deal with this inflation and the economy, because right now it goes to show that Democrats have failed in their economic, their environmental, and energy policies, and we're all feeling the effects of that.
Yeah, it's awful difficult to see how restaurants and grocery stores and anybody really can stay in business in the current political climate. She is Ashley Smith Thomas. Ashley, where are we going to learn more about you and what you do?
Yes, you can visit my nonprofit's website at freedomsfundusa.org. That's freedomsfundusa.org. You can also follow me on social media, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter at Ashley Smith Thomas. I tend to be on Facebook more, so it's Ashley Smith Thomas. And we also have a podcast called freedomtalkspodcast.com.
Very good. Ashley Smith Thomas, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160.